Welcome to episode 3 of the Abrahamic religions in brief. In this episode, there will be many lists from Abrahamic religions, and we will inform you briefly each religions. And remember, each list is in brief. Those religions will be informed in details in the following episodes. So let's go for the first list of this religion. And in the first, there is Judaism. One of Judaism's primary texts is the Tanakh, an account of the Israelites' relationship with God from their earliest history until the building of the Second Temple, circa 535 BCE. Abraham is hailed as the first Hebrew and the father of the Jewish people. One of his great-grandsons was Judah, from whom the religion ultimately gets its name. The Israelites were initially a number of tribes who lived in the Kingdom of Israel and Kingdom of Judah. After being conquered and exiled, some members of the Kingdom of Judah eventually returned to Israel. They later formed an independent state under the Hasmonean dynasty in the 2nd and 1st centuries BCE, before becoming a client kingdom of the Roman Empire, which also conquered the state and dispersed its inhabitants. From the 2nd to the 6th centuries, Jews wrote the Talmud, a lengthy work of legal rulings and biblical exegesis which, along with the Tanakh, is a key text of Judaism. The next list is Christianity. Christianity began in the 1st century as a sect within Judaism initially led by Jesus. His followers viewed him as the Messiah, as in the Confession of Peter. After his crucifixion and death, they came to view him as God incarnate, who was resurrected and will return at the end of time to judge the living and the dead, and create an eternal kingdom of God. Within a few decades, the new movement split from Judaism. Christian teaching is based on the Old and the New Testaments of the Bible. After several periods of alternating persecution and relative peace vis-a-vis the Roman authorities under different administrations, Christianity became the state church of the Roman Empire in 380, but has been split into various churches from its beginning. An attempt was made by the Byzantine Empire to unify the Christendom, but this formally failed with the East-West Schism of 1054. In the 16th century, the birth and growth of Protestantism during the Reformation further split Christianity into many denominations. The next list is Mormonism. Mormonism is a religious movement that arose within American Protestantism. During the Second Great Awakening in the United States, or in early 19th century, and that led to the formation of the community of believers called Mormons, and to the existence of numerous Latter-day Saint denominations. Its history is characterized by intense controversy and persecution in reaction to some of the movement's doctrines and practices and their relationship to mainstream Christianity. We can discuss later in detail about Mormonism and Nicene Christianity. Opinions differ among scholars of religion on whether to categorize the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints as a separate branch of Christianity or as the fourth Abrahamic religion, alongside Judaism, Christianity, and Islam. The beliefs of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints are characterized by unique understanding of the Godhead, emphasis on family life, belief in continuing revelation, desire for order, respect for authority, and missionary work. Its members place high importance on families and traditional gender roles, observe strict dietary prohibitions on alcohol, tobacco, coffee, and tea, and promote education and vigorous work ethic. The founder of the Latter-day Saint movement was Joseph Smith, who was raised in the burned-over district of New York State and claimed that in response to prayer, he saw God the Father and Jesus Christ, as well as angels and other visions. This eventually led him to what he said is a restoration of Christianity that he claimed was lost after the early Christian apostles were killed. In addition, several early Mormon leaders made marked doctrinal and leadership contributions to the movement, including Oliver Cowdery, Sidney Rigdon, and Brigham Young. The early church that originated with Joseph Smith in the 1820s shared strong similarities with some elements of 19th century Protestant Christianity, although the early Mormons had already undergone the development of their own distinct doctrine. Mormons believed that God, through Smith and his successors, restored various doctrines and practices that were lost from the original Christianity taught by Jesus Christ. For example, Smith, as a result of his first vision, primarily rejected the Nicene doctrine of the Trinity and instead thought that the God, the Father, His Son, Jesus Christ, and the Holy Ghost are three distinct personages. In upstate New York in 1823, Joseph Smith claimed to have had a vision in which the angel Maroni told him about engraved golden plates buried in a nearby hill. According to Smith, he received subsequent instruction from Maroni and 4 years later excavated the plates and translated them from Reformed Egyptian into English. The resultant Book of Mormon, so called after an ancient American prophet who, according to Smith, had compiled the text recorded on the golden plates, recounts the history of a tribe of Israelites led by the prophet Lehi, who migrated from Jerusalem to the Americas in the 7th century BCE. There they multiplied and split into 4 peoples: Jaredites, Nevites, Lamanites, and Molochites. The virtuous Nevites, who prospered for a time, were eventually exterminated by the hostile Lamanites. In the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints belief, these Israelite tribes who migrated to the Americas centuries before the birth of Jesus Christ are considered to be among the ancestors of pre-Columbian Native Americans. Other revealed writings, including Smith's translation of Egyptian scrolls that he declared to be in the Book of Abraham, were incorporated into the Pearl of Great Price. The Doctrine and Covenants contains Smith's ongoing revelation through 1844, and we can discuss that in another episode. In the next list is Islam. Islam is based on the teachings of the Quran. Although it considers Muhammad to be the seal of the prophets, Islam teaches that every prophet preached Islam, as the word Islam literally means submission to God. The main concept preached by all Abrahamic prophets, the teachings of the Quran, are believed by Muslims to be the direct and final revelation and words of Allah. Allah is the God in classical Arabic. Islam, like Christianity, is a universal religion. Universal here is the membership is open to anyone. Like Judaism, it has a strictly unitary conception of God called Tawhid, or strict monotheism. And we can discuss Islam more specifically in the following episodes. Now let's check for other Abrahamic religions. Historically, the Abrahamic religions have been considered to be Judaism, Christianity, and Islam. Some of this is due to the age and larger size of these three. The other similar religions were seen as either too new to judge as being truly in the same class or too small to be of significance to the category. However, some of the restrictions of Abrahamic to these three is due only to tradition in historical classification. Therefore, restricting the category to these three religions has come under criticism. The religions listed below here claim Abrahamic classification either by the religions themselves or by scholars who study them. Let's see Baha'i faith. The Baha'i faith, which dates to the late 19th century, is a new religious movement that has sometimes been listed as Abrahamic by scholarly sources in various fields. The Baha'i writings describe a monotheistic, personal, inaccessible, omniscient, omnipresent, imperishable, and Almighty God who is the creator of all things in the universe. The existence of God and the universe is thought to be eternal without a beginning or end. Though transcendent and inaccessible directly, God is nevertheless seen as conscious of the creation, with a will and purpose that is expressed through messengers recognized in the Baha'i faith as the manifestations of God. All the Jewish prophets, Zoroaster, Krishna, Gautama, Buddha, Jesus, Muhammad, the Bab, and ultimately Baha'u'llah. The purpose of the creation is for the created to have the capacity to know and love its creator through such methods as prayer, reflection, and being of service to humankind. God communicates His will and purpose to humanity through His intermediaries, the prophets and messengers who have founded world's religions from the beginning of humankind up to the present day, and will continue to do so in the future. Baha'u'llah was born in 1817 and passed away in 1892. The founder of the Baha'i faith affirms the highest religious station of manifestation of God for Abrahamic and generally for prophets mentioned among the other Abrahamic religions alongside some of non-Abrahamic religions as well, and has claimed a lineage of descent from Abraham through Keturah and Sarah. Additionally, Baha'is cite that Baha'u'llah lost a son, Mirza Mehdi. Baha'u'llah, then in prison, eulogized his son and connected to the subsequent easing of restrictions to his son's dying prayer and compared it to the intended sacrifice of Abraham's son. The Baha'i faith also shares many of the same commonalities of Judaism, Christianity, and Islam. The religion emphasizes monotheism and believes in one eternal transcendent God. The station of the founders of the major religions as manifestations of God come with revelation, as a series of interventions by God in human history that has been progressive and each preparing the way for the next. There is no definitive list of manifestations of God, but Baha'u'llah and Abdul Baha refer to several personages of manifestations. They include individuals generally not recognized by other Abrahamic religions, Krishna, Zoroaster, and Gautama Buddha, and general statements go further to other cultures. The next list is Druzze faith. The Druzze faith or Druzism is a monotheistic religion based on the teachings of high Islamic figures like Hamza ibn Ali bin Ahmad and Al-Hakim bin Amr Allah, and Greek philosophers such as Plato and Aristotle. Hamza ibn Ali bin Ahmad is considered the founder of the Druzze, and the primary author of the Druzze manuscripts. Jethro of Midian is considered an ancestor of Druzze, who revere him as their spiritual founder and chief prophet. The Epistles of Wisdom is the foundational text of the Druzze faith. The Druzze faith incorporates elements of Islam's Ismailism, Gnosticism, Neoplatonism, Pythagoreanism, Christianity, Hinduism, and other philosophies and beliefs, creating a distinct and secretive theology known to interpret esoterically religious scriptures and to highlight the role of the mind and truthfulness. The Druzze follow theophany and believe in reincarnation or the transmigration of the soul. At the end of the cycle of rebirth, which is achieved through successive reincarnations, the soul is united with the cosmic mind, or al-aqal al-kulli. In the Druzze faith, Jesus is considered one of God's important prophets. The Druzze faith is often classified as a branch of Ismaili Shia Islam, even though the faith originally developed out of Ismaili Islam. Druzze do not identify as Muslims, and they do not accept the 5 pillars of Islam. The next in the list is Rastafari. The heterogeneous Rastafari movement, sometimes termed Rastafarianism, which originated in Jamaica, is classified by some scholars as an international socio-religious movement, and by others as a separate Abrahamic religion, classified as both a new religious movement and social movement. It developed in Jamaica during the 1930s. It lacks any centralized authority, and there is much heterogeneity among practitioners who are known as Rastafari, Rastafarians, or Rastas. Rastafari refer to their beliefs, which are based on a specific interpretation of the Bible as Rastology. Central is a monotheistic belief in a single God, referred to as Jah, who partially resides within each individual. The former emperor of Ethiopia, Haile Selassie, is given central importance. Many Rastas regard him as the returned Messiah, the incarnation of Jah on earth, and as the second coming of Christ. That's Rastafari called the Emperor of Ethiopia. Others regard him as a human prophet who fully recognizes the inner divinity within every individual. Rastafari is Afrocentric and focuses its attention on the African diaspora, which it believes is oppressed within Western society or Babylon. Many Rastas call for the resettlement of the African diaspora in either Ethiopia or Africa more widely, referring to this continent as the promised land of Zion. Other interpretations shift focus onto the adoption of an Afrocentric attitude while living outside of Africa. Rastas refer to their practices as levite. Communal meetings are known as ground stations and are typified by music, chanting, discussions, and the smoking of cannabis, the latter being regarded as sacrament with beneficial properties. Rastas place emphasis on what they regard as living naturally, adhering to Ital dietary requirements, allowing their hair to form into dreadlocks, and following patriarchal gender roles. Rastafari originated among impoverished and socially disenfranchised Afro-Jamaican communities Its Afrocentric ideology was largely a reaction against Jamaica's then dominant British colonial culture. It was influenced by both Ethiopianism and the Back to Africa movement, promoted by black nationalist figures like Marcus Garvey. The movement developed after several Christian clergymen, most notably Leonard Howell, proclaimed that the crowning of Haile Selassie as Emperor of Ethiopia in 1930 fulfilled a biblical prophecy. By the 1950s, Rastafari's counter-cultural stance had brought the movement into conflict with wider Jamaican society, including violent clashes with law enforcement. In the 1960s and 1970s, it gained increased respectability within Jamaica and greater visibility abroad through the popularity of Rasta-inspired reggae musicians like Bob Marley. Enthusiasm for Rastafari declined in the 1980s, following the deaths of Haile Selassie and Bob Marley. The Rasta movement is organized on a largely cellular basis. There are several denominations or mentions of Rastafari, the most prominent of which are the Nyapingi, Bobo Ashanti, Ethiopian Zion Coptic Church, and the 12 Tribes of Israel, each of which offers different interpretations of Rasta belief. There are an estimated 700,000 to 1 million Rastas across the world. The largest population is in Jamaica, although communities can be found in most of the world's major population centers. The next list is Samaritanism. Samaritanism is based on some of the same books used as the basis of Judaism, but differs from the later. Samaritan religious works include the Samaritan version of the Torah, the Memar Markah, the Samaritan liturgy, and Samaritan law codes and biblical commentaries. Scholars have various theories concerning the actual relationships between these three texts. The Samaritan Pentateuch first became known to the Western world in 1931, proving the first example of the Samaritan alphabet and sparking an intense theological debate regarding its relative age versus the Masoretic text. The Samaritans are descendants of Israel, being descended from farmers among the Israelite tribes, part of whom were never exiled by the Assyrians or the Babylonians during the period of the destruction of the first Jewish commonwealth. Their maternal lineage, however, derived from the small nations, those who came from Cuta and others, who were exiled to Samaria by the Assyrians and intermixed with their paternal Israelite ancestors. The alien minority who remained in the land adopted the Israelite religion, such as Samaritanism, the sister of Israelite religion to Judaism. In the course of time, after the destruction of the first temple, a portion of the Samaritans exiled by the Assyrians were later repatriated by the prophet Jeremiah in the days of the Judean king Josiah. The Babylonians, who followed the Assyrians as the dominant entity in the Fertile Crescent, exiled many Samaritans, but skipped over a significant part of the Samaritan population. By the time they arrived in Samaria, the Babylonians found many alien elements in the land of Israel. Consequently, they did not undertake a thorough ethnic cleansing expulsion from Samaria, since the Assyrians had led many areas to be viewed as places whose indigenous population had already been replaced by aliens and needed no further expulsion. Later, when the exiled Israelites, now known as Jews, returned from the Babylonian exile under prophets Ezra and Nehemiah, they misidentified the Israelites who had stayed behind, or now known as Samaritans, as foreigners. The reason for the misidentification was because the deportations had led the exiled Israelites and the Israelites who remained behind to develop in different ways. The Babylonian captivity had a number of serious effects on the exiled Israelites or Jews, their religion or Judaism, and their culture. Included among the most obvious of these changes was replacing the original Paleo-Hebrew alphabet, we can see also in Samaritan script, with what is in fact a stylized from the Aramaic alphabet, now commonly called the Hebrew alphabet, because it is the normative form in which Hebrew is written due to Jewish numeric superiority, changes in the fundamental practices and customs of the Jewish religion, the culmination of biblical prophecy, or in the Jewish prophet Ezekiel, the compilation of not only the Talmud and Halakha, or Jewish religious law absent in Samaritanism, but also the incorporation of Nevi'im or the prophets and Ketuvim or writings as a part of the canon together with the Torah, or in Samaritanism, only the Torah is canonical. We can see later in Samaritan Torah. And the emergence of scribes and such as Jewish leaders, we can see Ezra and the Pharisees. These resulting differences in religious practices between returnees and those who remained in Israel led to schism in the Israelites and waged forth the creation of separate Samaritan and Jewish entities. Over the centuries, Judaism and world Jewry have come to the acceptance that the Samaritans are indeed descendants of Israelites. The Islamic conquest of Palestine in the first half of the 7th century and the subsequent Arab rule marked the beginning of the phase of decline and erosion of Samaritan identity, even more detrimentally than the extreme toll of Jewish identity. The passing of the aforementioned Al-Hakam Edict in 1021, along with another notable forced conversion to Islam, imposed at the hands of the rebel Ibn Firasa, decreased their numbers significantly, such that they decreased from more than 1 million in Roman times to just 712 people today. For those who maintained a Samaritan identity and religious association into modern times, they too, like their Palestinian counterparts who had additionally adopted Christianity and later Islam, were nevertheless thoroughly Arabized in language and culture. After the establishment of modern Israel, Samaritans living in what became the State of Israel replaced Palestinian Arabic with modern Hebrew as their day-to-day language. Although Samaritan Hebrew had always been maintained as the liturgical language, along with liturgical Samaritan Aramaic and liturgical Samaritan Arabic.